everyone, and welcome back to the channel.
Now, one word that has stood out to me in this chapter, and it's been something that I don't know where I heard it. I don't know if it was in a video, I don't know if I read it before in this book. I don't know, but it was sanctification. And I think somebody was talking about praying for sanctification. And it stuck to me, and it's been one of those things that it's been in the back of my mind. And so today, when I was reading through chapter 6, I'm not sure, I was going to count them and I didn't, but I know for sure I see two times that she mentions sanctification, just on the 2 pages next to each other. And I don't know if there's any more, but this is what she says here. God gives grace to those who embrace this abundant life, and he does so that let me do that all over again. God gives grace to those who embrace this abundant life, and he does so that we may live it as Christ did. God's unmerited favor fuels our sanctification. It serves 2 purposes in the lives of those who would walk humbly with their God. It teaches them and it strengthens them. Don't miss this. Grace teaches us to heed God's moral law. The moral law instructs us in what is displeasing, ungodliness, and worldly passions, and pleasing, self-controlled, upright, and godly lives to God. Apart from grace, we were unable to obey it. As recipients of grace, we are both capable of obedience and commanded to obedience, to eager obedience to be precise. Whereas the law pointed us to our need for grace, now grace points us to our need for the law. Grace enables us to humbly submit to God's good government, and God gives grace to the humble that they may do just that. And then she goes, there's so much in here that was just so amazing to me, because it was all the things that I'd been thinking about, all the things that I had been wanting to just hold on to, grasp, I guess, and work towards. And so let's see, she talks about, instead of shrinking into lawlessness, we are to grow in grace and truth after the pattern of Christ, full grace and truth. And later on down on that page, it says, with regard to our sanctification, grace instructs us to reject the error of lawless people, that we may grow in grace. Grace begets grace, another abundance. So here we see there's so many different things going on in the world. There's so many different distractions, temptations, and all of that kind of stuff. And here she reminds us that we are to reject the error of lawless people. It doesn't say reject the people. Reject the lawlessness of them. So if there are people living in sin, whatever God calls sin is sin. Reject the sin. You can hate that sin, not the person. Instead, pray for that person, love that person through what they're going through whatever it is, and be a light for them. Show them grace. Let's see what else I can share. There's so much, I don't know. It's just a lot of wisdom on grace, just being able to extend grace to others and to yourself, and just the fact that God loves us so much that he extends that grace to us in the midst of all of the things that we're doing wrong. And he continues to extend that grace as he teaches us, as he sanctifies us, as he molds us into the person that we are meant to be. And she talks here about the golden rule. So she shares the Matthew 7:12. Do to others as you would have them do to you. So clearly valuable is the moral imperative of this statement that even those outside the Christian faith have adopted it as the golden rule. But without an understanding of the abundant nature of grace, even the golden rule can be employed from a bare minimum perspective. So let me go back because I want to share what she says about this bare minimum perspective. Those who enjoy such abundance can afford to deal abundantly with others. So when we're given grace and abundance, when we're living that life and we're seeing that grace, not just that he's giving it to us and we're ignoring it, and because we can do that, we can just ignore the whole thing and act like we're the ones doing all the stuff, right? But God's extending this grace, and when we acknowledge that and we see how abundant that grace is in our lives, and we give from the place of abundance, then we don't become bitter and overwhelmed and hard-hearted and expect things in return, like, for what I give, you better give me back. Instead, we're giving from the abundance, right? So see, here she says they no longer live a bare minimum life with regard to their neighbors, always looking for ways to minimize what neighborliness might require of them. So we know that, I think it's in one of the Gospels, it may be in all of them, but I know it says that we are to love our neighbor as ourselves. And, it talks about loving God first and above all, and then loving our neighbor as ourselves. And then this is what all the law hangs on, these two. So if we could do those two, we can follow the law. So when we love our neighbor as ourselves, see, this is where it gets tricky, right? Because Satan wants to destroy us, right? He wants to steal things from us. So what he steals, and this is just from my experience and the things that I see, and even the things that I deal with. He will take your joy, and he will take that love for yourself, because he's going to make you feel like you are the worst person. Every time you do something wrong, he's going to make you feel like you're the most awful human being, and that you don't deserve any grace. You don't deserve what God has for you. You don't deserve to be loved. You don't deserve to be treated well. You don't deserve anything, right? And so this is like akin to abusive relationships, right? So in a relationship, let's say one or the other is abusive towards the other person, right? So they constantly are belittling them and making them feel bad, and constantly putting them down, and constantly making them feel like they don't matter. But see, it's real sneaky, right? They do it in ways that I guess now would be called like gaslighting. It's toxic. It's, but you never really realize it right away, because like Satan, it's very sneaky. Temptation is very sneaky. It's kind of like, oh, look over here at this wonderful, shiny little thing, and I'm not going to show you what's behind it. And what's behind it is always rotten and evil and just destruction. And that's exactly what this abusive relationship is. And that is who Satan is. He is the abuser of the brethren. He will abuse you as much as he possibly can. And until we realize that, and until we see that we are in a spiritual battle, we're not in a battle with fleshly people. Yes, we may battle people sometimes, because we all have personalities, we all have attitudes, we have all that, and we do have some issues, and sometimes you have to step away from relationships because of that. But our real battle is spiritual. And so when he comes, he says, okay, well, since God said they need to love their neighbors as themselves, well, let me just make them feel really bad about themselves, so they stop loving themselves and they start treating themselves badly, and they don't think they deserve love. So why should they give it to somebody else? And they don't deserve it either. And so when you do love someone else, you love them from the bare minimum. You just love them just enough to get by, just like you just love yourself just enough to make everybody think everything's fine. And so we need to live from a place of abundance, because if you are walking with the Lord, he will give you this abundance. You just have to let him. Because a lot of times we block the blessings. We block a lot of things because of our bad attitudes and the way we treat ourselves, the way we treat others, and the way we treat him. Because it's like the idea of honoring our father and our mother, our earthly father and mother. How much more should we honor our Creator, the Father of all things, the one who sent his Son to die for us so that we may have salvation and eternal life? Like, and when we treat him like the last resort, the last one we go to for everything, the one that we think we could do better than. And I know I'm guilty of saying, hey, I'm surrendering this to you, Lord. I'm going to give it to you. You work on it. I know I can't do this. And then I proceed, maybe a day later or a week later, even a year later, I proceed to say, hey, you're taking too long. Or I don't like the way you're doing it. I'm going to do it my way. That's just being a brat. It's just a rebellious child. And because things don't always have to be our way. As a matter of fact, most of the time it's not going to be our way. And we have to be able to be okay with that. We have to see the good and the joy in all the things. And know that he wants what's best for us, just like our earthly families do. Our earthly father and mother want the best for us. And yes, sometimes it can be annoying, and sometimes it can be just outright like, I can't deal with this, I don't want to hear it anymore, whatever. But they're doing it from a place of love, and that's exactly what God is doing. And we need to give of ourselves, of our time, of whatever, to our neighbors, whoever those may be. And those are, I mean, just consider your spouse your neighbor. Consider your family your neighbors, your actual neighbor your neighbor. People out in the world, people in your church family. These are your neighbors. These are the people that God has put in your pathway for a reason. And yes, not all of them are going to have the same mindset as you or whatever, but we are to love them and give from a place of abundance. Give grace. Give grace. Here I put a star. Let's see this. And the reason I put a star there is because it says, scarcity has a way of revealing our true understanding of the golden rule. Here's the bare truth. When there is one piece of pie, I don't want to deny myself and bless someone else with it, and I don't want to divide it equitably. I want the whole piece, and that's precisely why I should give the whole piece to someone else, because in doing so, I fulfill the golden rule. Yes, at bare minimum, I want to be treated fairly by others, but what I really want is to be treated preferentially. My love of preferential treatment displays itself in 1,000 ways. I want the best concert seats, the best parking spot, the upgrade to first class, the most comfortable seat in the living room, the biggest serving of pie, the last serving of pie all the time. Giving someone else the preferential treatment that I want requires humility. But God gives grace to the humble. Anytime we dine on humble pie, we can be certain it will be accompanied by an oversized dollop of grace. And when I think about that, we do this in so many different ways. You know, we need to remember that we need to come from a place of humility, because we're not better than anybody else. We don't deserve more than someone else just because we, I don't know, believe that we're better for some reason, because we have a better car or a better job or a better house or better whatever, that we're just above it all. Well, you're not. And when we come from a place of pride, it's going to eat us alive. It may be slow in coming, but it will rob you of everything good. It will rob you of the people that God has put in your life, because your pride is going to ruin those friendships and relationships. Your pride will put you in a place of utter loneliness, because people don't want to be around that. People, not even you or me, if we are prideful, we don't want to be around other prideful people. I mean, be honest, we don't. So if we're acting like that, we need to check ourselves and we need to change that, because that is not somewhere we need to be. We don't need to be out there saying, well, I got this and this is mine and I make this and I make that and I have this, beautiful shiny car and look at my new clothes and this is my, brand name stuff and all this stuff. If you can afford it and that's what you like, wear it by all means. I don't, it has nothing about having this stuff. It's how we act about this stuff. And we act like because we have this stuff, we're better than the ones that don't. That's where the problem comes in, and where we become the way we treat people, the way we speak to people. When we speak to them from this place of, oh, we're way up here and they're way down here because of our positions in the world. Just remember what God says. Prideful will fall. And you don't want to fall. And sometimes we have to fall. Sometimes we have to get hit between the eyes with the 2x4 so we can see what God has for us. Even my mother-in-law said that one day. She's like, I had to get hit hard right in the middle of the head for me to realize what I was doing wrong and for me to change. My husband said the same thing. In order for him to come to build a relationship with the Lord, he literally, where he couldn't walk. He had to be for months where he could not get up off the couch. He had to crawl places. He had to eat laying down. He was not able to work at all. And this lasted for about 6 months total while he was even in therapy and everything. And that took a while. And still to this day, he has issues with that. He has been doing is like the exercises that the physical therapist had taught him back then. So he still does that when he is having issues. But in both cases, that with those two people, they both said the same thing. And for me, it's very similar. It's similar that in the respect that I have to be smacked upside the head sometimes by God and like, listen, girl, you need to wake up and you need to take care of yourself, or you need to take care of this. And that's where I'm at right now. Because I thought I was doing okay. I thought, I'm feeling better, or I was, and all the things that I was doing before, to, eat healthier and do all this stuff. And I continued doing that for the most part. I just didn't continue with the plant-based whole food diet, but I, still ate pretty healthy. I have had issues every once in a while, but not like prior to that. So the last 5 years, or almost 5 years, it'll be 5 years in end of September since we moved. And in those 5 years, I have done a lot of soul searching, a lot of habit changes, and so they've been a blessing in that respect. As hard as they have been, they've been a blessing in that respect. And so these are things that reading this stuff, I keep thinking, I've got to give myself grace, but I've got to also follow the rules for me, for my life. There's the rules, there's the book, there's, the Bible, and that has the rules for all of us to abide by. And then each of us has, I think, rules that we need to abide by for our own health, for our own mental health, physical health, spiritual health. There are certain things that we can handle and certain things we can't handle. And I have noticed that I have a very low tolerance for stress now. And I'm always stressed out. I stress myself out with worry and stuff that I don't even need to worry about or think about. So that's something I'm learning how to deal with. But for whatever reason, which I believe it has a lot to do with age. It has a lot to do with being a woman and all the way the hormones fluctuate. And also just the stress of losing my mom. And in the 2 years, a little less than 2 years after, losing 5 more family members. And most of them were really close family members. Actually, all of them were, except one, as far as how he was my great uncle, but we were really close because I grew up going to church at the same place that they went. So I was pretty close to them. And so it was, the three on my mom's side of the family and the three on my dad's side of the family, and all within less than 2 years of when my mom passed, from the time she passed until just recently that my grandma passed away on, I believe it was the 8th of July. And so it's been rough, and I've neglected taking care of myself in the way I should. And because of that, because I allowed myself to give up on the things I knew I should have been doing, because I know that I was going to deal with the grief and was going to deal with the depression, the anxiety, all of that was going to come. And I knew that. And instead of setting myself up to be able to keep up in my health routine, I just didn't care. I just let it go, and I ignored myself. I ignored the need for rest, the need for all that I still do. Learning, it's something that's going to take me a while to learn, I guess. But because of that, I know that I need to change now. We don't have all the time in the world. Yes, we have eternity after this. And so I want the rest of this time on earth to be good, to be filled with joy, to be peaceful, to be calm. And yes, I'm going to have ups and downs and all the other things, but I want that stability of trusting the Lord with all of it, and being able to find the joy in the midst of the storms. I want to find that calm peace, that Psalm 23 talks about, just walking with him by the still waters, even when everything around me is going crazy. And so, these are things that I'm working on. And so, I hope that something blessed you from this chapter. There's still a little bit more. There's some reflection questions, and maybe if I get to those today, maybe I will share those in another video. And this one's getting really long. It's already 42 minutes long. So I will cut this one, and I will see you guys in the next one. God bless you. Bye.